Let's take a look at page 70. We're going to look at number 4 and 5. For number 4, we're asked to graph the point 2, 3. So that is to the right 2 and up 3. That's that point right there. For part A, it says if m equals 3 halves, and just to remember that m stands for slope. And recall that slope is the same thing as the change in y over the change in x, or the rate of change. What would be the next point to the right of 2, 3? So we're using this information. So if we think of slope as m, that's 3 halves, and that is rise over run, or if it's helpful to think of the change in y over the change in x. All of those things are true, and that can help you with this. So if we look at what the rise is, it's 3. It's a positive 3, which means I should be going up. So going up 3 from there, and then the run is 2. That's the horizontal change, and it's positive. The positive direction is to the right. So my next point to the right should be this point right here, which is 4, 6. The next part says if m is 3 over 2, or 3 halves, what would the next point to the left of this? So if I want to go to the left, so let's take a look at this. We'll go in the other direction. So the slope is, the rise is still 3 and the run is still 2. In order to make this work, we have to, if we go up and to the right, we're going to end up over here again. So that's not going to be to the left. So if we go down 3, which is like -3, and then we can't go to the right or we don't end up in our line anymore. So we need to go to the left 2. So that would be like a -2, and then put our other point right here. That way you can see it still falls in the line. And let's take a look at what we did with our slope. In this case, our m looks like it was in the negative direction. It was -3 over -2. Well, what happens when you take a negative and divide by a negative? That's going to be positive. So this is the same thing as positive 3 halves. So our slope has not changed. And if we start from this point, so this point right here came out to be 0, 0. And if we go from 0, 0 and go in that other direction, this way, going up would be +3, and to the right would be +2. So you still get to that same point. The direction changes depending on whether you're going up or down, left or right. Try number 5 on your own. Start by plotting the point -2, -4. Pause the video so you can do that. So you can see that I have my point plotted here, left 2, down 4. The question says if m, the slope, is -1/4, what would be the next point to the right of -2, -4, the given point? And so I want to point out that we have a negative here, and the negative is out in front. You can decide if it makes sense to have the negative go with the change in y, or if the negative goes with the change in x. So see if you can predict where this next point is based on this. And think of what it means to have a negative slope or a negative rate of change. Pause the video and plot that next point. So with slope being rise over run or change in y over change in x, we know that the change in y is 1 and the change in x is 4, but our ratio has to be negative. So that negative could mean that our change in y is -1, so down 1, and this would be to the right 4, or we can have the change in y be +1 and our change in x would be negative. So for this first fraction, this would be down 1, right 4. And for this second fraction that I wrote out, it would be up 1 and left 4 if you take the sign with those. But let's see what that looks like with the graph. Hopefully you have something over here that you can compare to. So if I am trying to go to the right of this given point, I'm going to start with my change, and we can just see what happens. So if I start with a -1, if I go down 1 and I want to go right 4, so this would be the correct one. I would want to go down 1 place and then to the right 4, and I would have a point right here, which is 2, -5. And the next question says I want one to be the left of the given point, and you can see here left is this one, and this tells me I'm going to start by going up 1 and then left 4. Make sure I'm really going 4 places. And then my point would be right there, which is -6, -3. So let's look at what that negative slope shows us. That negative slope, if I connect my lines, it might be easier if I draw my line through here. So let's do that to connect all of those points we just plotted. Oops. Hopefully you can see that our graph is falling from left to right. A ball would be rolling down that incline. This is a decreasing graph. This is decreasing from left to right, and it has a negative slope. If we had picked a different direction, we would have just gotten the opposite point, but we would still be falling on the line. As long as you only go in one negative direction, you will end up with points that fall on that line. Let's take a look at number 4 again really quickly. If I draw this line connecting the dots, you can see that this graph is increasing as you go from left to right. So this graph right here, and I'm just going to label it up at the top, this is an increasing graph from left to right, and our slope was positive. And that was denoted here, 3/2 is a positive slope. This would be a great time to watch the Slope Dude video, who gives an overview of different slopes and whether they're positive, and how to remember whether they're positive or negative, or what that would look like.